As predictable as some critics complain the horror genre can be, there is no subgenre with a more recognizable formula than the venerable institution of the slasher movie. Ever since Black Christmas inspired Halloween, which in turn inspired Friday the 13th, so just some small-name movies, the simple setup of mass killer murders a handful of transgressing teens was transported everywhere. From abandoned summer camps, to leafy suburbs, to eerily empty hospitals, to college dorms, and even to the Brooklyn Bridge. You know, when Jason finally took Manhattan. So how is it that the basic slasher premise has given rise to some of the most inventive, surreal, and strange films that horror, and its bastard brother, horror comedy, have to offer? Maybe it's their exploitable simplicity, but since their heyday in the 80s, slashers have produced a far more diverse range of genre mashups than, say, the haunted house or demonic possession subgenre. So I guess with that in mind, you can safely say that rules weren't made to be broken after all. They were made to be sliced down the middle instead. I am the Rise of Ashley Vernon from What Culture, and these are 10 slasher movies that broke all the rules. 10. Scream. The king of subversive slashers, Scream rewrote the same rules that it broke for every movie that followed, and its effect on the subgenre remains immeasurable decades later. Hot off the critical success of 1994's self-referential Freddy Krueger reboot, New Nightmare, lovely Wes Craven brought to life a gruesome, hilariously meta slasher where the teenage victims had not only seen Halloween, but were able to name-drop Jason Voorhees and had made fun of each other for being walking horror movie cliches. The film saw both its pair of killers and their victims deconstruct the formula of slasher movies as audiences knew them, with double the trouble in a duo of killers proving for an unbelievably twisty turn that redefined what a slasher movie could be. Scream's success relied on this clever plot, which not only avoided cliches, but used familiar slasher tropes against the viewer. And most famously in this vein, the film cast Drew Barrymore as its first victim, wrong-footing audiences who assumed the star's fame meant she would be playing the lead role of the final girl. It's almost embarrassing how many expectations you automatically have for this movie that are turned on their head. 9. Dude Bro Party Massacre 3. The title gives the game away on this one, since there is no Dude Bro Party Massacre 1 or 2 for this film to follow up. Instead, this bizarre satire acts as the third entry in a non-existent franchise, setting up a truly surreal series of comic sketches which play out like a mashup of TV series Scream Queens and cult comedy Wet Hot American Summer. The unique structure lets the film call back to earlier installments which aren't actually real, allowing the creators to parody the slasher subgenre's frequently contradictory and far too complex lore. But the jokes don't stop there. Dude Bro Party Massacre 3's zany sense of humor means characters frequently break the fourth wall, as well as the film itself switching channels mid-movie and at one point, a character managing to walk so far that he leaves the film's reality. Ah, yes. Happens to the best of us. A genuinely weird and endlessly inventive parody, Dude Bro Party Massacre 3 benefits from the presence of cult comedians to deconstruct not only slashers, but franchises, sequels, and movies themselves as well. Lovely. 8. Detention. Not unlike Dude Bro Party Massacre 3, this doesn't just take aim at slasher films, but uses their exploitable formula to jab at everything from social media, to the torture porn craze, to viral videos, to small-town Americana, high school movie cliches, everything but the kitchen sink. Detention's hyperactive plot sees disgruntled senior Riley Jones struggle with her unpopularity, whilst a mass murderer named Cinder Heller offs her classmates one by one. But as the film begins to deconstruct the slasher story, it dips into the world of superhero origin stories, body swap family films, and eventually even time travel. Also, did I mention Cinderella is the in-universe star of a very successful Saw-style franchise, an installment of which the characters go to see during her doppelganger/copycats killing spree? There is a load of ridiculous plotting whirring away under the surface, but it all pulls together into something wonderfully subversive in the process. 7. You Might Be the Killer. The clue is in the title here really. This movie is adapted from a Twitter thread between a pair of authors which offered a unique twist on the classic slasher on the loose in an abandoned summer camp premise. You see, this time around our hero has come to with a pair of blood-coated hands and a few hours of memory missing, and it's occurring to him that, well, as his horror buff buddy informs him, he might actually be the killer of this horror story. So follows a slasher wherein the protagonist has to battle with this titular possibility. And whilst I don't want to spoil too many of the surprises to be uncovered here, suffice it to say the conventions of standard slashers are thrown to the wind in favour of an original twist on the mass murderer offs a series of helpless teens formula. 6. The Cabin in the Woods. The Cabin in the Woods starts off like an average enough slasher, with a set of college students, some of whom would go on to impressive fame, hey there Thor, setting off for a weekend of partying, drinking, sex, and other punishable by machete murder behavior in a remote cabin in the woods. But early on, the viewer is given glimpses of a shadowy conspiracy run by government bureaucrats which seems somehow connected to the group's revelry. As the connective tissue between the two stories is revealed, the film has a chance to subvert every slasher movie cliche, from the stern old local warning the arrogant kids away from straying off the map, to the supposedly bright young things turned to dumb kids when it's convenient to the plot. The eventual reveal is a trippy critique of not only slashers, but the horror genre at large, and the film's story eventually becomes a Lovecraftian satire of cultural norms before ending with an unforgettable twist. One that throws the last chunk of cliche out and offers something truly shocking in its place. 5. Happy Death Day. One criticism often chucked at slasher films is that they often dwell on the deaths of their young female stars, objectifying their gruesomely offed bodies whilst offering them little character or agency on screen. But 2017's Happy Death Day has a pretty genius workaround for this problem. The film follows Tree, a hard-partying college girl who is killed off after the opening 15 minutes, only to wake up, Groundhog Day style, and repeat her death day, which also happens to be her birthday too, the poor girl, until she's able to uncover her killer and end the loop. What follows is a surprisingly funny, tender rom-com wherein Tree falls for the boy who helps her unmask her killer, whilst also growing as a person exponentially. It is a great reminder that the slasher template can be a great springboard for all sorts of stories, even unexpectedly cute ones. 4. Return to Horror High. Often forgotten, Return to Horror High is here for two reasons. One, it's the on-screen debut of George Clooney, who ironically plays an arrogant no-name actor who's convinced he'll make it big, only to be killed almost immediately. 2, and more importantly, the film is probably the most comprehensive satire of the slasher subgenre before Scream. Following a production crew as they film, surprise, a trashy slasher film in a high school where a killing spree occurred years earlier, the film constantly pivots between reality and reconstruction, allowing the creators to mess with both the exploitative side of the horror genre and the notoriously cynical movie industry. Some of the film's most intense sequences are interrupted by producers yelling cut, actors comment on the thin and unlikely motivations of their characters, and the final twist is one of the most audaciously silly to ever grace the silver screen. It is a bit far-fetched for some, but for genre fiends who grew up with countless paint-by-numbers 80s slashers, Return to Horror High is a genius deconstruction of both these films and the people responsible for them. 3. Tucker and Dale vs. Evil. The mid-2000s, bless that time, saw a revival of hillbilly horror with countless remakes and homages, bringing this particular inbreed of killer-on-the-loose story to the surface. Wrong Turn, The Hills Have Eyes, Timber Falls, and Hatchet all came out at a similar time, and saw their heroes wander off the beaten track only to pay with their lives, borrowing from classic 70s horrors like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Deliverance for their country-fried villains. And where there's a slasher trend, there is always some smartass ready to flip it on its head. Enter Tucker and Dale vs. Evil, a slasher/rom-com which flipped expectations by putting the audience in the perspective of the hillbillies, instead of the college kids taking a trip to their secluded neck of the woods. And the audience soon discovered, in a hilarious subversion of expectations, that the villains are bemused, good-hearted yokels who have no idea what these college kids are freaking out about, resulting in a bizarre and sweet, unexpected love story, punctuated by a string of grisly deaths. Naturally. 2. Fear Inc. Fear Inc. has an inventive premise which could only have come from the mind of a sketch comedy writer, and at times the film does feel like a YouTube skit that has gotten way out of hand. In a good way really, since I can hardly talk here. Our hero is a shiftless slacker who loves haunted house attractions, the seasonal tourist traps wherein janky animatronics and underpaid teens in shoddy mummy costumes jump out at unsuspecting customers to give them a good-natured scare. Borrowing its premise from real-life extreme endurance haunted houses such as the infamous McCamey Manor, the flick sees him signs up for Fear Inc., a haunted house experience like none other. Cue the lights flickering out, shadowy figures appearing in his garden after dark, and his friend being trapped in a Saw-style torture trap, forcing our hero to either mutilate his mate or stand by and watch him die. Our hero's girlfriend being bundled into an unmarked van, thus starting a terrifying all-night ordeal to find her. The film constantly wrong-foots audience expectations, with real scenes being setups and vice versa. And although there is a big helping topping of corn by the end of it, Fear Inc. still remixes this slasher formula to mind-blowingly twisty success. 1. The Final Girls. 2015 was a weirdly pivotal year for subversive horror content, really. The Scream series and Scream Queens both simultaneously parodied and paid homage to horror, whilst everything from the aforementioned Dude Bro Party Massacre 3 to LA Slasher to Final Girl sent cinematic body blows into the slasher's slumped remains. None of the above, however, managed to repeat the impressive trick of the Final Girls, which combined a nostalgic spoof of 80s slashers with, of all things, a tender, surprisingly heartfelt mother-daughter dramedy. The resultant flick bounces between broad comedy and poignant scenes, and manages to make a striptease set to Betty Davis eyes into one of horror's most life-affirming moments. Yes, really. It's a testament to the director that the film is able to balance such contrasting tones and moods. But it does manage to, providing inarguable proof of the endless potential in the simple slasher formula in the process. And that's our list. What other rule-defying slasher movies would you add to this list? Share your thoughts in the comment section below. I've been Ash, and this has been What Culture. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and come back again soon for some more spine-tingling horror content. Thanks for watching.